Right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, y'all. My name is Rebecca Teeving. I use she, her pronouns, and I am going to be presenting to you today about careers in social science with a social justice focus. I want to start us off today with a land acknowledgement. So I invite you to take this time to pause and reflect. And then just in terms of logistical notes, if you have any questions during the presentation, please put them in the Q&A box. I'll be addressing the questions at the end. And we will be recording, but you're not going to be visible, so don't worry about having your camera off or anything like that. All right. Okay, so for the land acknowledgement. The land on which we gather is the unceded territory of the Awaswas-speaking UP tribe. The Amamutsan tribal band, comprised of the descendants of indigenous people taken to Mission Santa Cruz and San Juan Bautista during Spanish colonization of the Central Coast, is today working hard to restore traditional stewardship practices on these lands and heal from historical trauma. And of course, this is for Santa Cruz, and I know y'all are joining from all over, but thank you for being here. All right, so I'm here with Career Success. We are a campus department, and we can help you through all stages of your career development. So if you're still in the process of trying to understand how to choose or change your major, or understand how you can connect your major to a career, we can help you with that. We can help you with exploring your options, searching for internships and jobs, applying to grad or professional school, and going through all stages of job application, whether that's resume and cover letter work, preparing for networking, and practice interviewing. So if you are looking for career support, we are here for you. We also still help alumni. So if you've already graduated and you're still kind of struggling or you need some support with your career, you can still come to us and use our resources for 2 years post-graduation. And that includes Handshake, attendance of events like this one and like career fairs, and also coaching appointments. All right. So you might be here because you feel like you need to choose a career, but you don't know what you want to do with your life. Sometimes it can feel like a lot of pressure to make these decisions, especially if you're approaching graduation and you feel like the clock is ticking. Or maybe you're just starting in school and you feel like you need to have a better direction and there's a sense of urgency to use your time well, but you don't necessarily know what you're working toward. So if this is you, hopefully we can help. One thing that I think we often hear when we're trying to decide on careers is to follow your passion or find your passion, do what you love and you won't work a day in your life. I don't actually find that very helpful. A lot of the times when I hear that advice, it feels like almost more pressure. It can be kind of overwhelming, especially if you're not sure what you're passionate about, or you feel like the things that you're interested in, you're not really sure if they connect to a career. Maybe you're doing something that you really like or studying something that you're really enjoying, but it still feels like work and you don't understand, like maybe it's just not right for you. It's not supposed to be this hard. The reality is that passion is the intersection of a lot of different things. Passion as a concept encompasses purpose, meaning, interests, and strengths. And it's not necessarily just one single thing. It's also not something that you can find. It's something that you can develop and grow into. So there's this kind of idea a lot of the time that folks have with their interests, that their interests are fixed from birth, right? Like you're just interested in some things and you're not interested in other things, and that doesn't really change over your life. When you have that kind of fixed mindset, sometimes it can prevent you from seeing opportunities or developing and growing into areas that you maybe find challenging at first. I can give you just a personal example that's kind of silly. I told myself for my whole life that there was no way that I'd ever be able to ride a skateboard. Like skateboarding isn't for me. It's too scary. It's not something that I have the coordination or ability or even interest to do. I'd see the skate parks. I didn't see a lot of women there, which is how I identify. And I was just kind of like, oh, nope, that's not for me. And then something shifted in my mind and I wanted to learn how to surf. And I realized like skateboarding and surfing are very similar. It's hard to get to the beach, but it's easy to do something outside. And I picked up a skateboard and I got on it and it was great. I actually like ended up riding it and it was okay. And I didn't fall over and I didn't hurt myself. And it was suddenly like this story that I had been telling myself for my entire life wasn't actually true. And it wasn't that I wasn't interested. It was just that I sort of felt like it wasn't for me. I know that's a ridiculous example, but I'd say it to illustrate that you can find interest and your interests can change and grow and encompass more things as you yourself change and grow. And one of the things that I really encourage you to practice is to continue to make meaning of the things that you're doing. So like, yeah, I know skateboarding is ridiculous, right? But for me, it sort of changed my internal narrative about who I am and the things that I can do and kind of a belief in myself and, getting over a fear. So rather than trying to have all of the right answers, right? Like rather than trying to start with like, I need to just know what to do, I would say a more useful practice is to ask yourself the right questions. So especially when we're thinking about like a career in social justice, or maybe, you're studying social science because you want to make a positive impact on the world. Maybe you don't use the term social justice, maybe you're thinking in a different framework. But I think rather than feeling pressure of like, well, I need to know the answer, I need to know how I'm going to contribute, you start by asking yourself some questions. What issues do you want to learn more about? Where is your curiosity pulling you? What does your community need? What are things that you see around you that would be, that you could potentially come up with some solutions for, or at least problems that you see that you would want to work on? How can you use your skills to be of service? What are the things that you find yourself helping out the people around you with? Like when your friend has an issue, do they come to you to help talk it out? And you're a really good listener, and that's something that you can provide. Are you the person who goes and like edits people's papers before they turn them in because you have a really good eye for detail? Maybe you're somebody who's a really good planner and you are great at coming up with a schedule and sticking to it, and your friends need support with that. Those are all things, even if it's in your personal life, those are pointing you toward your areas of strength and your areas of skill. Another question to ask is, what opportunities are available right now? And are you actually seeing those opportunities? Have you given yourself the space to explore what might be out there? And then where can you grow? Maybe there's some sticky points for you or things that you're afraid of. Again, like using the silly example of skateboarding, like, that's a sticky point for me. Maybe instead of feeling afraid, I could lean into it. Thinking about for yourself, what are some of those areas or stories you've been telling yourself, and are they true? And how can you grow, sort of encompass more? Okay, so I hear this a lot from social science students because I tend to work with students like you. That's kind of my area within our office. Social sciences is a really broad field of study, right? It encompasses a lot. And sometimes this can feel really overwhelming when you're trying to figure out, what your career path could look like. I think for other majors, there might be a more direct path. Like maybe if you're in accounting, you know exactly what your next steps are going to be, and you know how you're going to get there. But if you're in a major like sociology or psychology, there are so many options available to you. And something that I just want you to take away from this is that career planning is something that's ongoing. It is a lifelong process. This isn't something that you do once, you make up your mind, and then it goes away. Every position that you're in is going to be shifting and changing who you are. It's going to change the skills that you have to offer, the experiences that you've gotten. It'll tell you things about yourself like, wow, I really don't like this job, and I don't like these parts of it. And then for your next job, you can work on avoiding those things, right? Or maximizing the things that you do well. So every experience you have is going to be building on your past experience and skill, and that's going to be pointing you in a future direction. And you can create your own path. Even if you have some goals, and we can talk about goal setting in a little bit, ultimately, you are going to be creating your own path based on factors that you don't have control over or that you don't necessarily know about now. The things that you do know about and the things you do have control over are internally located, right? So your interests, your knowledge, your personality, skills, your identities, where you come from, your values. All of those things help to shape you and help to shape what type of work that you might want to do in the world. And you can control those things more than you can some of the external stuff that might shift where you end up. So I think one of the biggest myths that I hear, and one of the things that I try to really push back against, is this idea of a dream job, and that there's only one perfect path or one thing that you're suited for. You can make a dream out of a lot of different opportunities and a lot of different jobs. And rather than feeling like you need to find something perfect, I think trying to find something that's right for right now. All right. So one of the things that is a kind of scary reality, but also kind of exciting, is that a lot of times our careers and our lives, our decisions are shaped by forces outside of our control, right? 70% of people say that a chance event significantly changed their career. And when you think back on your journey to where you are now, think about some of those forks in the roads or opportunities that you got or people that you met that you couldn't have anticipated. Maybe they're positive things, like, maybe something great happened and it shifted a whole new world for you. Like, you read an article and suddenly you were like, oh my gosh, I'm super interested in this topic and I'm going to go explore that more. Maybe somebody came to your campus as a high school student and you heard about UC Santa Cruz and you're like, I didn't know that the school was as great as it is and I want to go there, right? So thinking back on your life, what are some of those little moments that you couldn't have anticipated that shifted your direction? For example, one of the reasons that I'm in my career right now is because I happened to go to a wellness class when I was a freshman in college at UC Santa Barbara. And I was not into wellness. It was not like, I had a friend who really loved it. And I was kind of like, I'm not sure how this is going to be. It was 8 a.m. I was like, I don't want to go to an 8 a.m. class. But she dragged me there and I went. And on that day, representatives from the Career Center at UC Santa Barbara came to our class to tell us about a new position they were recruiting for, which was a peer advisor position. And I applied as a freshman. I got it. I worked there for 3 years and totally changed my life. And now I'm a career counselor. So if I hadn't gone to that class, I don't know if I would have heard about that opportunity or if I would have applied for it. And I might be in a very different place, right? So another kind of shift in terms of questions that you're asking yourself, other than thinking like, what can I do with my major? Which is, it's not a bad question, but I think what might be a little bit more helpful is what skills are you developing through your academic work? What are you learning right now? And how would you like to apply that? So this is just kind of a breakdown of some different ways of thinking about skills. So work content skills are the things that you need to do for your specific role, right? So for example, like in my role, I administer career assessments, right? The strong interest inventory, the Myers-Briggs type indicator. I work with students to help them understand their results. If I were to switch into a different career, I might not be using those career assessments anymore. That's a work content skill. Things that your job specifically requires of you.
Rebecca,
Adaptive, yes.
I apologize for interrupting. There's a little bit of feedback on your speaker, so I'm not sure if it's the headset or
Okay.
just double check everything real quick. Everyone is muted though, so we're just getting a little bit of feedback.
Let's see, does this make it better?
Say something again.
Does it make it better?
Yes,
Oh.
that sounds great. Thank you.
Right. Okay, awesome. You might hear the chickens. Let me know. I've got a bunch of chickens and they can be really loud at inconvenient times. So hopefully it doesn't cause a problem, but okay. So adaptive or self-management skills, these are more like what we call human skills, or you might have heard of like soft skills. These are things, they're more like qualities that you possess. So like being honest, being punctual, hardworking, loyal, open to feedback, those kinds of things that you would use in a lot of different contexts. And it's more about who you are as a person. And then functional or transferable skills are skill sets that you develop in different contexts that translate really well into other contexts, right? So, for example, project management. Maybe you have to do a group project as part of school, and you're the person in charge of making sure that things are happening on time. Everybody's has their different individually assigned tasks. You're working together to create goals and creating a cohesive project. The content of that project might not be that relevant to the job that you want to apply to. Like maybe the project that you're working on is like creating a short animated film, and you're not really intending to go into the film industry. But the skill of being able to manage the project can translate really well into other contexts. So when you're thinking about the things that you're learning, it's really important to not just think in terms of like the specific tasks that you're doing, but what you're learning from doing those tasks. So, writing is another one that I'm sure that y'all are doing as part of your social sciences work. Teaching, if you're asked at work to train somebody new, that's a really useful skill set that you can probably use in other areas as well. All right. So I want you to think about like which of these really stand out to you or are salient to you in the work that you're doing through your schoolwork. These are different competencies that have been compiled through long-term research from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And it's specifically about what skill sets or competencies do graduates need to succeed in professional contexts. So career and self-development, communication, critical thinking, equity and inclusion, leadership, professionalism, teamwork, and technology. These are all skills that can apply across any different context. Hold on, let me open the chat really quick. Okay. So these different skill sets, like I said, you can develop them in any context, but more than just having the skill, I think the thing that's really, really important is that you can articulate it. Because if you can't share with an employer in an interview, or you can't write about it in your resume, the things that you know how to do, they won't necessarily make that connection themselves. And with social sciences, I think this is super important because not everybody knows what you're studying in your classes. And there's not necessarily classes that are specifically preparing you for one career. So being able to say, through my work as a community studies major, I was able to critically look at systems of power and oppression and how that directly affects communities. And these are the things that I learned how to do from that. That says a lot more than just having community studies bachelor's degree on your resume. Okay. So when we're thinking about a career in social justice or wanting to change the world, I'm sure that there are some careers that might like jump right into your head, like being an immigration lawyer, working in conservation. There's not necessarily one direct path or one way to be working towards social justice. And so this is really where some of your self-reflection is going to come into play. Do you like working directly with individuals? Like, do you find a lot of satisfaction from that? Or would you prefer to work more in like a group context? Are you happiest behind the scenes? Or are you somebody who really wants to be out there sending a message to the world? Are you more interested in working on the local level, state level, nationally, internationally? In addition to that, more than just like the specifics of the type of work that you want to do, or working for like one specific type of organization, like working for a nonprofit or working for like a community mental health organization, you can shape the work that you do anywhere that you are. Even if it's not for a specific cause, you can still shape the way that you interact with your coworkers. Maybe you create an employee resource group to share space and create community with people of your identity so that you create a better working environment where you are. Then you're working towards social justice, right? So rather than seeing it as like, oh, well, I'm not working for a nonprofit, so I must not be, doing enough, or like, oh, I'm working at this like a big tech company, I must be selling out. There's other things that you can do to help to shape the world around you, and still live in accordance with your values. The other thing too is I feel like I've been hopefully getting this across, but you don't need to choose just one path. You don't just need to choose one occupation that you're going to be stuck in for the rest of your life. It doesn't work like that anymore. Maybe it used to be more of like, you stick with one company forever. But now people change careers like 12 times in their lifetime. I get there's a lot of different studies, so a lot of different numbers out there. But I think that it can be kind of relieving to know that you don't have to pick perfect right off the bat. You can also shift and even completely change industries if you realize that that's not working for you. There's no expiration date. I hear this a lot, especially when alumni come to meet with me and they're like, I feel like it's too late, or I feel like if I don't go to graduate school right now, I'm never going to go. Um, you know, I don't want to feel stuck in my job and then, regret not making a different decision. Um, you can always shift. You can always adapt. You can change. Um, you can try new things. And especially with grad school too, people have this idea that you have to go straight in. That's not the case. Most people take at least a year in between undergrad and grad school, and often more. I think the average age of admission to medical school is 26. I heard from a lawyer who was talking about how she went straight in from undergrad at UCSC to her law school. She was the youngest one there, and she actually missed out on some opportunities because she didn't have as much experience as her classmates. I've also heard the flip side of that, where somebody's gone in, later and felt like everybody was younger than them. So there's definitely, nuance and different timelines and different ways of being, and it's not just one right way. Okay, so let's get a little bit more specific here. So if you want to work towards social justice, or even just using your degree, here are some different areas where you could work. Social services, mental health, law and government, public policy goes along with that. Human resources is, working for businesses to make sure that the people who are working there are taken care of. Education, healthcare is another one that I think sometimes, if you're not in STEM, you think, well, I can't work in healthcare, but there are actually positions, and I'll show you one, that don't even require direct patient care, but that are really helpful within the healthcare industry. Okay. So before I get into this, I just want you to know that there is no possible way for me to list every different occupation. There's so many. There's so many different ways of working, even within each of these occupations. Oh, did somebody have something to add? Oh, okay. Sorry, where was I? Basically, even within each of these different roles, there are so many different ways to get there that I'm not going to give you like a template for how to become one of these people. But what I will say is here are some ideas and help you think outside the box a little bit in terms of how you could work towards social justice in a career. So I think a lot of folks have heard of social workers, and they kind of have a specific image in their minds of what a social worker is. And typically it's something about like working with child protective services, or, going into people's homes and, with the intent of advocating for children, something like that. Social workers can work in a lot of different contexts. They work with individuals and families with the goal of improving their lives. They can do psychoeducation, where they're teaching folks how to manage emotions, how to deal with their surroundings and their situation. They also help them with concrete and practical support. So helping them to find employment, helping them navigate mental illness, navigate substance abuse, and connect with housing. There are a lot of different settings. I know a social worker who is a travel healthcare social worker. She goes to hospitals for like a 3-month temporary assignment where she works specifically with not just in the psych ward, but also checking in with people who have gotten into accidents or had traumatic events happen that have landed them in the hospital and make sure that they're okay. She checks in with the patients before they're able to be discharged to make sure that they have the supports that they need. And if they don't, she connects them with those resources. Social workers can also do a lot of the work that I'm actually going to list here. A master's in social work is pretty broadly applicable. They can also work directly in providing therapy if they're a licensed clinical social worker. Another career that you might not think about in terms of social justice, but that can be intensely valuable is being an interpreter or translator. For example, you could work in a variety of different contexts as an American Sign Language interpreter and help to support people's access to communication and help to directly help individuals to participate in their communities. This is another thing that you could use in the field of law, in education, a lot in business. There's so many different contexts where you could work as an interpreter. So if you speak another language fluently and you have a pretty good academic foundation in that language, this could be a really good option for you. Grant writing is another occupation that I think can really pull on some of the skills that you learn through your work in social sciences, right? You're probably a really strong analytical writer. Grant writers help to create proposals for companies or nonprofits or schools or organizations to get funding for their various programs. These are in high demand. It takes a lot of attention to detail. You research grants, you find ones to apply to from organizations that give money, and make sure that they're written in with really specific guidelines so that potentially the organization that you work for can receive funding for something that can change the community. If you're interested in grant writing, there are quite a few courses that you can take. You don't necessarily need to have a specific degree, and you can do this at the bachelor level. All right. Community developer. This is the type of role where you can work with marginalized communities, create programs to support people. Sometimes that would be like assessing community need, figuring out what stakeholders are involved, creating relationships there, developing plans to improve those communities. There's a lot of different organizations that will employ community developers. When I was doing some quick research just to pull up some sample job descriptions, I saw a lot of community developer positions at large companies. So if you're working on a degree in business and you're like, I don't really know how I could incorporate that without doing like financial work or specific, like accounting work that doesn't appeal to me as much, you could look at community developer while you'd still be working with a big organization. Advocate is another one that I think is really cool. There's a lot of different types of advocates. I pulled this from Indeed.com, and I don't really like the language that they use in terms of like victim advocate. But there are other types of advocacy as well. And I'm going to show you a bunch of examples of this type of role in a minute. You could potentially do this work with a bachelor's degree. You could also, if you have a master's degree or you want to work toward one, you could get a master's degree that would help you toward this role. All right, policy analysts. This is one that I hear a lot from folks who maybe want to go to law school because they want to change the law. Being a policy analyst might be a better fit, or working toward a shift in public policy. Basically, you can do work in a community to understand what the needs are and create and shift public policies to better support those needs. So they might be doing research, they might be talking to folks, they might be drafting reports and writing them. They might be doing more of a public facing role where they're telling people about a potential change in policy. And this is one that you would need a master's degree in. There's kind of 3 different types of programs that are all pretty much the same. Masters of Public Policy, Masters of Public Administration, or Master of Public Affairs. So I hear a lot of students who are interested in working in education, but they don't necessarily know how they can do that. They don't want to be a teacher, they don't want to be a professor, or maybe they're like, I guess I would, but I don't know if that's really where my interest lies. Being a program coordinator at a university is one way that I think you can affect a lot of change, work with students directly, work in education, while focusing on helping students to feel a sense of belonging and acceptance. So program coordinating, just as a broad overview of the occupation, is basically overseeing the successful planning and completion of different programs. So whether that's educational programming, professional or charitable programming, you're creating education for your constituents, whether that's like for students or for the community, or for a company, the employees who work there, and basically creating the programs, supervising the staff, delegating tasks, meeting with the people that you're serving, managing the budget, and doing outreach. So you don't necessarily need a master's degree to do this. You could do it at a bachelor level. Sometimes they prefer a master's degree. I know that can be true in higher ed contexts. It doesn't mean that you absolutely need one, but it could be helpful. If you're interested in working in higher education as a program coordinator, look for counselor education programs. That's the type of program that I did. And that would prepare you to work as a staff member at a higher ed institution in a variety of different contexts. So when I was looking at just program coordinator jobs just in our area, I saw some for diversity, equity, and inclusion program coordinator that's currently recruiting at UC Santa Cruz. There's also, if you are a part of, or if you've ever heard about the ethnic resource centers, each of those have program coordinators who work to create workshops and education and safe community spaces for students of different ethnic identities. EOP too. If you're part of EOP, you've probably met with somebody who's a program coordinator. STARS is another organization on campus who would hire somebody in this capacity. And all the different residential colleges have program coordinators too. So basically, this is a role where you can work in a lot of different contexts to support education and community for students or people. I list lawyer last because I think this is an occupation that a lot of people have heard of and a lot of people have thought about. You could work towards social justice as a lawyer in a lot of different contexts. Human rights, social justice, immigration, public interest, community, civil rights, a lot of different ways that you could work as a lawyer to support people. You would need a law degree, which is a JD, which is a 3-year program. Something that I think is important to know before you make that decision, and that I don't think is necessarily shared as much as it should be, is that it's not necessarily like going to law school isn't necessarily the ticket to a high-paying career. And it's not necessarily the direct way to get to an easy job right off the bat. The job market is pretty oversaturated, and you can verify that on the Bureau of Labor Statistics website. There are more people graduating with law degrees than there are lawyers or positions available as lawyers. So I don't necessarily say that to discourage you, because I think if this is something that you're excited about and all of the different pieces of information that you need, great. But I just don't want you to go into it thinking that it's going to be different and be disappointed, because law school is expensive. All right, I want to show you some different, so I looked up jobs for advocate. And by the way, I'm not an expert on any of these occupations, highly recommend looking into it yourself, reading job descriptions. We'll talk about that in a sec. Okay, so one resource that I really recommend using is indeed.com. It's a great just huge job search website. So it'll pull in tons of stuff from lots of different companies all over the country. I did a search for advocate in Santa Cruz. I found this one, community health advocate. You can read the job description here. Basically, you can work with Doctors on Duty, which is a local organization dedicated to community health. And you would be working specifically to support community members and their social and health needs by referring them to community resources, services, and medical systems. So you're working directly with patients to help to get them the care that they need, advocating directly for others. All right, so you can read some of the key responsibilities here. And I think this is a really good exercise, because when we learn about occupations theoretically, it doesn't necessarily tell us what that's actually going to feel like or look like when you're doing it. So before you decide on like, okay, I want a career as an advocate, read a bunch of job descriptions to see what that would actually mean. So if you wanted to be an advocate in the healthcare setting, you're going to be working directly with patients. You're coordinating their needs, and it looks like liaising with other organizations and other departments. So different hospitals here. Use available resources to identify patients who may benefit from population health interventions, assessing patients' social and health related needs. So looks like a lot of talking to people one-on-one to figure out how to best help them develop strategies to meet those needs. And you're going to be following up with them. This is basically like social work, and being an advocate in this case is specifically in the health community, but you're not doing direct healthcare, right? You're just helping them to support their, like, facilitate connections to the resources that they need. Okay. Here's another advocate position. If you don't know about CARE, CARE is an organization on our campus that supports folks who have experienced sexual violence and need support with navigating, reporting the Title IX process, and access to resources and mental health support. So they're hiring an advocate for a year-long position. So it's a limited position. And you can read in the description, they work with student health, right? And also CAPS. And it'll tell you what they do. It'll tell you how much money they make each year. Tells you if they get benefits, how much you would be working. So it looks like 8 to 5. And then in this part of the job description, it breaks down your role. So telling you like 70% of the role is direct advocacy. So administers confidential and privileged, comprehensive, empowerment-based, and trauma-informed crisis intervention, ongoing advocacy, and support services to those that experience sexual harassment and violence, stalking, and intimate partner violence. So this is something that you would be doing on a really routine basis. Like if it says 70%, that's a lot of your job. You're also doing education outreach. You're also doing some administrative work. When you read the qualifications, this is going to tell you about the specific things that you would need to show. So you just need a bachelor's degree. Notice how it says social work, counseling, or related field. This can be interpreted really broadly. If you can help them to see the connection between what you've learned and what you hope to do, you can potentially be qualified for this position. All right. You'll notice the preferred qualification is a master's. This means that they wouldn't use you not having a master's degree to screen you out of the interview process. But if somebody has a master's degree and you're pretty comparable to them, they would probably pick that person. So this is something that's good to know. If this is the type of work you might want to do, here are some different ways that you could be qualified to do that. Okay. Finally, here's another advocate position. Lindsay, did you raise your hand? You can put your questions in in the Q&A, and I'll address them at the end. Okay. Finally, this advocate position is working for Community Bridges, which is a Santa Cruz organization that provides resources to folks in the Santa Cruz County area. And you can read the description here. Okay. So the reason I show you all of this, and I know it's like, okay, you just showed me 3 totally different jobs in 3 totally different contexts that all say advocate. It's because when I summarize a job like I did earlier in these past slides, it's so broad and it could apply to so many different contexts that it's more useful for you to think about what context might I want to work in, and how could I use my skills specifically there. So let's go back to present. You can see 3 very different contexts for similar work. Look at the qualifications that they're asking for. If you don't meet everyone, that's okay. Typically, education is going to be like a hard preference. If they say a bachelor's degree is required, you need a bachelor's degree. But if you don't have some of the experience, like maybe you don't have the full 2 years of experience, it could be worth applying. You might get an interview, and you might in that interview have the opportunity to share with them how your 1.5 years of experience really helped you to be prepared for the role. The other thing to think about is how have your skills that you've learned in other contexts helped you to do that kind of work? So thinking more broadly in terms of your skill sets. So here are some strategies. 1, search broadly. If you're interested in any of the careers I named, or something else, and you're not sure what kinds of jobs exist in that area, search really broadly. Use key terms like advocacy, social justice, equity. Think about the thing that you care about in terms of like an issue that you want to work toward, like homelessness. Search there, and then keep an open mind. See what's out there. Sometimes totally like the similar job will have totally different job titles in different companies. So like my job title is career coach. It's also in a different organization. It might be career counselor. It's going to be career engagement specialist. I'm doing pretty much the same job. So using the key term career would be way more helpful for me than limiting it to just like career coach. Note patterns and themes that come from the job descriptions. So if they're all asking for something similar, are master's degrees preferred pretty much in every one that you're reading? Great. Now you have a plan to work toward. Go to the organization's website directly to apply. So remember that the healthcare advocate position that I just showed you at Doctors on Duty? I found that on Indeed. I was like, oh, this is so cool. I went to the organization's website and I couldn't find it. That's because they've already filled the position, but it's still up on Indeed. So if you applied through Indeed, it would be kind of a waste of time because they're no longer recruiting for it, but it just hasn't been removed from the Indeed website. So don't make that mistake. I've had students put so much energy into an application and then realize that it was closed. So go to the organization's website directly. Something really big in these areas is relationship building and networking. Talk to people who work at the organizations that you're excited about, and do informational interviews. Ask them about their work. Ask them how they got into it. What kinds of things do they do on a day-to-day basis? What do they like? What don't they like? What are hidden qualifications that might not be listed that they're looking for in good candidates? By doing that kind of conversation and communication with people who work in the work that you want to do, it was a really bad sentence. You can actually prepare yourself better. You can make yourself a better candidate because now you're getting insider tips. Typically, people get interviews through knowing another person. If you have made a really positive impression on them, they're more likely to refer you to somebody who might be able to hire you. And it'll also help you, like even if you don't end up working in that organization, but you do similar work elsewhere, you can actually still maintain contact, and now you're colleagues, right? Don't use the same resume for every job you apply to. I do presentations on this all the time. So if you're interested in learning more about resumes, keep an eye out, or you can also come to us and we can support you with your resume. And reflect and collect information even after you're in the job. It doesn't end, right? There might be something better. You might be able to move the field forward just based on what you learn from colleagues. Okay, or at least find an opportunity that'll fit you better next. Okay, so here's some concrete resources. If you're feeling kind of stuck on understanding yourself, Focus 2, I would highly recommend. It's a free assessment tool, and you can learn more about your interests, skills, values, and personality. I've linked some research databases, and we can share this slideshow with you at the end. I also linked idealist.org. If you're looking for nonprofit organizations or job opportunities there, this is a really great one to use. Here's a bunch of job search sites as well. We offer resume support. And if you are hearing all this stuff and you're like, I want to talk about how I can specifically work toward this career, make an appointment and we can talk about it together. There are other coaches as well who can support you. But you would, in order to make an appointment, you need to log on to Handshake using your, oh man, okay, well, I'm not going to do that right now. Using your UCSC credentials. Okay, in this presentation, which is way longer than what I have time to give today, there's a ton of resources, including our Student Volunteer Center, how you can get involved and gain some skills, more about the resource centers, how you can get employed on campus, internship programs through your major, lots of really great stuff. So we will email this presentation to you so that you can follow those links. Okay. All right. So let me answer some questions. What types of social science careers require master's, PhD degrees, or would be difficult to access without one? This is a super broad question. I don't know exactly how to answer it. I think that what I would ask from you is more like specifically what types of careers are you interested in? And we can take a look from there to see if you would need an advanced degree. Typically, advanced degrees will make you more specifically marketable for or more of an expert in a specific field. So sometimes those can point more directly to career paths, and that can be helpful. Like technically, my job doesn't require a master's degree, but it's preferred. And doing my master's program made me much more marketable for the job, plus the experience that I had. So hard to answer that question. But if you want to make an appointment, we can talk more specifically about your situation.
You also provided, oh, sorry to interrupt. Ronald provided some clarity in the chat. How does having just an undergrad degree limit our opportunities? But I think you pretty much touched on that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so there are positions that are available for folks with just a bachelor's degree versus advanced degrees. A bunch of the ones that I showed you today, I think actually all three of them didn't require a master's degree. So there are certainly opportunities available. If you're noticing a trend in the jobs that you're looking at that do require a master's, then it's time to sort of work toward how to get there. What is the average salary range for college career counselors? I'm really interested in a career like that where I can help others, but money is a concern. Oh, yes, I feel you. Okay, let me show you how to find that information. There are a couple of different resources that are really useful, and I shared one in the PowerPoint slide. Hold on. Okay. If let's see. I'm going to add this in the chat. Where did the chat go? Bear with me. Okay. Oops, I shared that to the panelists. Let's do it to the attendees. There we go. Okay. So this is on our website. This is Research Online Databases. This is a list of different websites that we have found useful to research specific jobs. ONET and the Occupational Outlook Handbook are listed at the top. Um, they are both run by the US Department of Labor. So they have really updated salary information, both nationally and specific to state. And they also tell more information about how to become that particular profession, what they do, what kind of work environments they're in, the kinds of tasks and things that you might have to do on a day-to-day basis. So I really recommend these two. Inside Jobs is another really good one. Glassdoor tends to provide a lot of information about specific companies. And Focus also provides information after you take those assessments. You can actually look up the specific careers. As a social science major, is it possible to make a career out of working abroad? Absolutely. Yep. There are a lot of different ways that you can work abroad too. Like, do you want to work for a specific company? You know, find a company that has offices abroad and work there. Do you want to work in the foreign service and work on behalf of the government? Do you want to go teach English in a different country? There's so many different ways that you could do that. So again, sorry about the broad answer, but the answer is yes. How does the humanities non-STEM undergrad degree affect your access to grad PhD programs? Totally depends on the program. So one of the annoying things about grad school compared to undergraduate is that you're not applying to the school as a whole. Well, you are, but you're really applying to the program specifically, and different programs will have different requirements. So for example, there are some schools in the Bay Area that offer counseling psychology degrees that lead toward licensure so that you can be like a therapist. And then in the same school, they also have like college counseling degrees that don't lead to becoming a therapist. It would lead to be working on a college campus. Those two programs might have totally different application requirements. So basically look at the specific program that you're interested in and see if there are prerequisite courses that you would need. I can tell you for med school and for nursing, you're probably going to need some science prerequisites that you wouldn't necessarily get from your major. Something that I've heard from students who are doing exactly that, like I have social science students who want to go to med school. Their struggle is trying to get the courses that they need because they're not part of the major. And sometimes those science classes are really impacted. So what you might need to do if you want to go like a route that's going to require you to have a lot of prerequisites that you don't have, you might do a post-bac program where you actually get those prereqs after you graduate in a different program. Or it might require adding a major or changing a major if you're currently here. Or, you know, on the flip side, like law school, as a social sciences major, you're totally qualified to apply to law school. They get tons of social science applicants. That would be totally fine. So depends on the program. Okay. I know you mentioned that having the mentality of it's too late isn't good, but as a fourth year student, what can I do to develop the skills that these jobs are asking for? I've usually worked in retail only and feel that you're not good enough for these jobs or opportunities. I understand. I think that there's a lot of voices that kind of devalue work that isn't in specific contexts. So like retail work is often devalued, but I bet you're actually learning a lot of really great skills as part of your retail work. One of the things that I can think of right off the bat is if you work retail, you're really good with people and really good with de-escalating conflict because people are difficult. You're also really great probably at managing competing priorities in a fast-paced environment, working as part of a team. You might be, I don't know exactly what your role is, but you might be a salesperson who's really persuasive and good at oral communication. So I wouldn't necessarily discount your work with retail. And I would say as a fourth year student, if you're going into your fourth year, you've still got time. I would recommend getting involved on campus. So if there are any orgs that you're excited about, joining campus organizations, you can absolutely add that to your resume and it can give you good skills. and networking opportunities. And I would also say, look to see if there are any part-time jobs or internships that are more in line with the kind of work that you want to do. Volunteering is another option if you can afford it and if you have time. When is the most appropriate time to apply for a job if you want to start working right after graduation, considering that the diploma will take some time to arrive post-grad? So you want to start your job search pretty early. It depends on your industry. And I know I'm giving you so many it depends answers. A lot of companies start actively recruiting seniors early in fall. So for example, Meet the Firms is our career fair that's geared toward finance and accounting students. It's in, I think, the first or second week of classes. Taylor, you can chime in.
The first week.
Yep. First week of classes, and they're recruiting for the following year. So they recruit really early, and it gets a lot harder to get those positions if you're applying in like March, April. A lot of companies are kind of shifting, especially like in tech, a lot of them are shifting more early in terms of their recruitment. So start going to career fairs in the fall if you're looking for job opportunities. Keep an eye out, keep applying, and I just wouldn't leave it until like June, July when you're graduating. You know, it also depends on the organization. Like tiny nonprofits recruit kind of like as needed. They're not going to be doing it way in advance. So if you're wanting to work for a smaller organization, you might apply more like February, March of when you're intending to get the job. Thinking of applying to university overseas, do you have any tips for interacting with international universities? I think it pretty much goes for any professional communication. Like be polite, be responsive. If you have specific questions or things that aren't answered on their website, reaching out to somebody to talk to them can be a really good move. They usually have admissions representatives. I have one of the peer coaches who worked with us last year is going to graduate school in Spain. She applied, pretty much in the same way that you would for an American university, but things like the time difference and sometimes language barriers can make communicating a little bit harder, but it's fairly similar. If you want support with your communication, or you're drafting an email and you don't know what to say, or you don't know what questions to ask, you can set up an appointment and we can help you through that. Is it possible that there are programs which open opportunities to both therapy type careers or working on college campuses? Oh yeah, totally. The thing about therapy, if you want to practice therapy, you need to have a license. Every state is going to have a different licensure process. In California, there are 3 different ones. There's licensed clinical social worker, which, by the way, like those tend to have the broadest application. If you have an LCSW, you can work in so many different contexts, including working on a college campus. I know one of the career counselors down at UC Santa Barbara is an LCSW. There's also MFT and LPCC. I could give you so much more detail about that, but you would be totally qualified to work on a college campus with those degrees. But you might not have the level of specific knowledge that somebody coming from a counselor education program would, which means that you would need to demonstrate your ability to do whatever work they're asking for a little bit more. The reverse is hard. If you don't have a license, you can't practice therapy. So if you go to a counselor ed program and you think you might eventually want to be a therapist, you would have to go back to school.
Rebecca, we're at 4 p.m.
Okay.
Yep.
So many questions. Okay. Well, if I didn't answer your question, feel free to make an appointment. You can also follow up with me via email, which I can put in the chat. All right. And thank you so much.